This is her lower teeth. Got severe periodontal disease, a lot of breakdown. And so we dropped in 5 implants. This is a verification jig. We'll go into this in more detail. This is the working model. I'm just kind of going through quickly this, and then we'll go into more detailed steps. This is the prosthesis on day of delivery. This is one of the earlier ones that we were doing that were processed on titanium bars with processed denture teeth. Today there's other materials that we're using now. But this is kind of a typical lower right here. That's the lower. I typically nowadays are bringing them a little further down. And then we patch the holes. Sometimes I use pink, but I actually prefer to use white. That's why when you said, what about the home? Like, I don't know, I use white holes to patch those. Tongue sits in there, so it's really not an aesthetic thing. But I really want to see it well when I have to go in and access it. And then occlusion is important. We'll go into that too. That's her after. Okay. So the same protocol we talked about. Remember the 5 steps: tooth position, all these things. We're starting out with photographic records. So we're going to get a smile picture. We're going to get the side profile. We're going to do a retracted. This is one of my favorite pictures to take diagnostically. And the reason for this is that you'll notice that I got the retractors. I'm not cropped in. I'm cropped out, and I can see the eyes, I can see the maxillary plane, and I can see the horizon. And in this case, these are horizontal blinds. Some people I've seen take some tape along the wall and take those pictures. This is a highly diagnostic image because you get a reference of the maxilla in relationship to the eyes and to the horizon. So it's a great image for your technician to see, particularly with these full arch cases. So this is how Bernie presented. He's the one I told you about where my hygienist says, hey, you know, if you want to have a long-term solution and have this one and done, you don't have to keep coming in and treat this gum disease and lose a tooth at a time. We have solutions, and then this is where we go. So we start with the photographs. What do you think is of his lower incisal edge position? You can almost see the CEJ at his lip. Okay. One of the things that I like to do is have a patient say E. If you have patients say, if you tell them to smile, people grimace. Smile for me. I mean, it's the weirdest thing, smile, you get the weirdest faces. No, just smile normal. So if I have them say E, for some reason E, I get the most kind of natural smile, unless I can get them to laugh. I'm sitting there with the camera, I try to get them to laugh and capture that moment when they laugh, because I'm trying to get the full extent of the dynamics of the lips, how much his face and lips change. Like, you know, in this case, we're seeing back to second molars. So this is an important take-home concept if you're going to start doing these cases. This is the kiss of death right here. I call it the transition zone. So that's why when I want to really get his lip moving, you can do this with videos. Sometimes you can have them read something, or if you have someone in the office that's funny that can get a patient laughing, you want to really be able to capture how much, because people guard this stuff. They guard it. When they have ugly teeth, they've learned to kind of not do this, but if you can get them laughing, because I want to know the highest place he can get that. Because if his lip it gets high enough that transition of where that hybrid is going to meet the ridge, that's so difficult to mask. And so that's why we got to know where that is. So we call it transition zone. So people are going to present as different ways. You know, you got this patient, you got this one. This is the worst kiss of death, right? So that VME patient, remember that steep mandibular plane angle, that vertical, that patient is going to be a difficult patient for this technique on a maxillary arch. Maybe that patient's going to be better served with something that has a flange that can get up under there and hide that transition zone.
Sorry, dumb question. Why can't you flange that right there, even further up into the vestibule? Yeah.
Well, because this is a fixed. This is a fixed cleansable.
Cleansable.
Yeah, you're just going to have a food trap, and you're going to have basically like this wrapped
Isn't it
around.
already not very cleansable no matter what, as it is?
If you design them properly to clean, they're fairly cleansable. If they have a concave profile underneath, they're not very cleansable. But yeah, that's one of the potential downsides to it. But ridge lapping that is the worst thing you'd want
Could
to
you
do.
do a large alveoplasty?
Yeah, well, we do those anyways on most of these cases. So sometimes if you've got this scenario and you're gonna reduce the bone, which you often have to do, you can tuck that up there a little bit. But you need to get these photos to get that dynamic range so you know what you're dealing with. So that way, when we're treatment planning it, we know where it is. I'm gonna show you an analog way of doing this, which is kind of the traditional way, because it's important you kind of sequentially know the steps of the process. Most of the ones we're doing now are all done digitally. But the analog way still works. The digital process just has some benefits in terms of precision and time and such. Okay. So again, we're determining, you know, the tooth position that we're shooting for.
So you're going to see some of that guy's prosthetic there, right? Because his lip line goes up above the.
Yeah, but in this case, we're gonna raise it up. This is gonna get cut off. So these teeth are going to come out and that ridge is going to get caught up under there. So this one's not going to be an issue. Typically what you need on average is from the incisal edge to the restorative platform is going to be about 15 to 17 millimeters of space is what you need. So that's why I need to know where is this going to end up. And I'm going to measure from here to here. And I got to have somewhere between 15 and 17 millimeters of space for the bar, the hardware, and all the stuff. And the same with on the lower. So all this down here is getting cut off. Okay, standard documentation. And then this is just me in the lab where I did the wax up and I start setting the teeth. And I know where the centrals are, so think of it like an immediate denture. Right? I'm just backing my lab and I'm setting teeth. I know where they're going to go. And I start putting the centrals in, I mess around. Now I don't spend the time to go and do all the refinement of the wax up. I'll probably send that out to the lab and let them finish it, but I've at least got the teeth set up where I want it. They'll process the denture and they'll make this thing called a wafer. It's a bite wafer, okay? You'll notice there's two of them. One of them, because this is a two-arch case, so one of these wafers is going to index the upper and the lower to each other. The other one is going to index the upper or the lower to the existing teeth. So if you're doing two jaws, you're going to do one jaw first, right? Typically, you're probably going to do the upper jaw first, and you're going to put this wafer in that's indexed the lower. That way, when that upper gets set, we get it set in the orientation that we need it to be in. Does that make sense? So you're going to have, in the articulator, you're going to have you're going to have models that can be, you know, you're going to have a lower up against the denture, and then you're going to have another set that's going to go against the processed dentures. It'll make more sense in a minute. So that's basically the provisional denture that we're going to work with right there. You'll notice it has these cutouts because in this case, before we have the digital process where we have the guides that pin in, we want to wrap around that tooth so that denture goes in and it has kind of an anti-rotational feature. It indexes it. So that's why it has these around the teeth. The teeth will come out, but for the sake of the conversion, then we want those indexes. And then the denture gets duplicated in a clear acrylic, and you'll notice there's a trough opened up right here, okay? The trough is where the implants are going to be placed. The key is to get these implants placed within that trough, okay? So if there's a bicuspid here, you can imagine that that implant would be somewhere right in that cingulum. We don't want them too far back here. We don't want them too facial. They just got to go within that trough. Same with the lower. Okay? That's what the implants look like when they're placed. In our office, we don't really love all on 4. We like a 6 on top and 5 on the bottom. I used to like to say all on 4, none on 3. Because if you have 4 implants and you lose one, it's kind of hard to support an arch. But if you have 6, you lost that implant, you just go, it's a bummer. Get out and move on. Which is hedging your bet. It's distributing forward forces and load. Some of these are just straight multi-unit abutments, and these back here are going to be the angled ones. You'll see the screw axis is here on the side. That's because these things have either a 15 or a 30-degree angle. So the implant is actually put in at an angle to straddle the sinus instead of put in straight up vertical. It also increases the AP spread. Okay? So this is the provisional right here. This is done at time of surgery. Now this particular system, you'll notice that's a multi-unit abutment, multi-unit abutment, multi-unit abutment, but these other white things look a little different. This particular system, Biomet, has what's called a quick bridge, and if you look on these, there are these little domes that screw on top of this multi-unit, and then they have a housing, think of it kind of like a locator concept. They have a little housing that goes in here, so instead of having to unscrew, 6 of these, we'll have a few of them that screw in, but the rest of them snap in. So you just snap it in, and then you just screw in the others. It's easy to work with. But that's just for the provisional. The finals don't have that.
So you don't have to have 6 holes coming out of your denture. You have
Exactly.
to line them all up.
Yeah. You, in theory, could do these all the way around too, but
Yeah.
we typically screw them in because I don't really like the idea of pulling on them when we place them. This is the final prosthesis, what it looks like. It's got titanium underneath, an acrylic process. You know that it's done well when the screw access holes see where they're at? They're centered in the teeth, they're here close. They're not out here, so you got this long, funky, I've seen some where like they're on the pallet, they're sticking out the screw hole because someone didn't plan it well and they got implants going every which way. So you want to keep a nice profile and keep these implants within that trough.
Who made the trough? Did you make the trough in that duplicated denture?
Typically the lab.
Okay.
And that's also got to correlate, the surgeon's got to be able to place the implants wherever the bone's at too,
Yep.
right?
Did you
So that's why
place
that trough gives him a window of a little
Yeah.
bit of a leeway. Now the newer way of doing it, we're doing it guided, and it's a guide pinhole, and it's done on CT, and it's precisely placed in. Like there's no flexibility, like there's no trough. It's like that drill goes in that hole, and that's the only place it goes. So there's more precision. This technique that we've done hundreds of them like this, it's all we had, is more up to the surgeon's judgment and skill and expertise. So there's also more possibility for error too. There's that much more leeway. So when I seat these, what I typically will do is do the single hole test, where I'll put one in, and then I'll feel to make sure it's seated, because you don't want to go and start cranking them all down.
What's it called again? The Schiffman technique or something? What's it called?
I don't know.
The passive one screw technique?
Yeah,
Whatever.
I don't know that guy. I think it's the Sullivan technique actually.
Is this the
Can
final?
I shine your shoes?
What's that?
With the final or the 10?
That looks like that's a final, I think. I don't know, I couldn't answer that. It looks like a final one. Yeah, that's a final right there, because it's got the metal on it. The other one, I can't answer that. This is not zirconia, this is the old school denture acrylic technique. And then the day we seat them, I just use this silicone to patch the holes and give the patient some time to wear them before we put anything in there permanent. That way, if I need to make adjustments or take them off, I just stick it in Explorer and pop that little plug hole out. And then there's burning all there. He's had this thing in place for, I think, about 8 years now.
How often are you pulling it, unscrewing it out and cleaning?
I used to do it more frequently. I used to do it like almost once a year, but I avoid doing it. I do it on certain patients that I know their hygiene's poor. For the most part, I don't take them off a lot. Hygienists can get under it with some sodium bicarb spray, and we work with them on cleaning it. But beyond that, I don't routinely take them off. If I do, I charge a fee for it, and we charge them for new screws. Because you don't want to keep cranking those screws over and over.
I've heard never reuse the screws, is that right? Just use them?
They say you can reuse them like, X times, but we just say if we take them out, I don't want the risk of breaking them.
And stripping them, once you strip one and break them, you don't like taking them on and off.
Yeah, sorry, so small.
But then you want to avoid it.
So this is the surgical package, basically, this is the analog technique for doing this. So basically, you're going to give the lab models. The surgeon's going to work off a panel. We're going to work off this dupe of the denture here. And you'll notice these 30-degree lines. That's a reference for the surgeon that knows that he's going to put these implants in probably at this angle. And then there's the bite registrations. Okay, so that's what the lab will provide you and then you're gonna do all the conversion yourself, this traditional denture conversion. The digital ones come already with the pallet opened up, it's a milled PMA, it's monolithic, the holes are pre-drilled, and they fit onto this guide, and it's pretty slick.
And you're doing that through BioHorizons, right? Isn't that who you're using?
Biomet 3i, but there's a lab called Row Lab, if you want to start doing these. They probably have the most experience with the digital process, and they can work with a lot of different implant systems, and that'll help you with that.
Row, you said
Row,
Row.
R-O-E. Yeah. This
What
is,
implants were you using? You were telling me you're using, what implants are you using?
well, these cases that I'm doing come from Biomet. All my hybrids, all the implant cases come from Biomet. We
Yeah.
dabbled with the company that Straumann bought called Neodent. We did a few cases with that, didn't like them as much. But Biomet has a really good system for this. The downside is Biomet is an expensive, it's a premium implant. You know, it's Straumann, Biomet, Zimmer, Nobel, but it's a high-end implant, so it's pricier.
What about Blue Sky Bio? You guys haven't done any, isn't that?
Yeah, Blue Sky Bio, there's an implant called the Biomax. It's kind of a knockoff of Nobel Active.
Yeah.
And they have a really cool guided kit. They have a guided kit that's not expensive, but it has cylinders. It's a keyless guided kit. It's freaking awesome. I mean, you just put that, monkey could do that.
You can do that
put
on the
thing
cheap
in-
too.
Huh?
You can do that on the cheap too.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah,
expensive.
that Blue Sky Bio, isn't that, you guys replacing some?
Yeah, we play some Blue Sky Bios.
Yeah,
Listen, the bone doesn't know whether it's getting a $400 implant or a $100 implant.
exactly.
And if the technique is done well, what these guys have over Blue Sky Bio in a case like this is a lot more options for components, a lot more options for this stuff, and a hell of a lot more support. Blue Sky Bio, you're on your own. I mean, there's very little support, and they're often backstocked and supplies, so if you work with them, you better buy the common stuff you need, because when you need a 10 millimeter by whatever, it just might be back ordered. That's the only downside you run into. But Dr. Boyce chooses the implant system that he likes to place, and since when I'm doing these hybrid cases, I'm working with him because I'm not doing the surgical part. So if you guys as a group or you want to place them or whoever, I mean, I'm not saying that a GP can't do this, but it's high level surgical stuff. It's like you gotta know what you're doing. So pick a system that that you're gonna get the support that you need. So this is basically some slides. Remember I told you the 15 millimeters? So this is that guide, and you're gonna need, you're gonna see here in a minute, some surgical